So good afternoon to you all. This is the meeting of the Curriculum Committee, New Hanover County Schools Board of Education Curriculum Committee. Today's date is June 28th, and it is 3:45. And we have with us Ms. Judy Justice, who is our committee chairperson, and we will ask her to bring the welcome.
Well, thank you for being here, everyone. We just recently started the curriculum committee, I guess you could say, back up. And so far, everything's been great. And to me, it's very exciting because having been a retired teacher and a school administrator, I just love the fact that the whole district is jumping on board and doing the right thing about what's going on in the classrooms for our teachers, our kids, everyone. So I'm going to leave this to most of all of you, but let me just go through a little bit of business here. As far as the well, let me see. Approval of why don't we do a roll call? Because we should be doing that. So Ms. Cherry, Ms. Smith, could you do that for us, please? Is she there? Can she hear me?
Yes, she can. Yeah.
Okay. Probably getting the list together.
Can you all hear me?
A little.
What about now? Is that better?
It's about the same. Can you get a little louder?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. It's just not super loud, but then you talk softly anyway, so.
Okay. Ms. Justice.
Here.
Mr. Wildebohr.
Present.
Ms. Crable.
Yes, I'm here, but Terry, I can barely hear you, and there is a lot of staticky chatter in the background.
We will ask everyone if they will mute themselves until we call your name. And what I'll do is I'll pull up our committee roster, and we'll call the names of those folks who are on the committee. And then we'll acknowledge those who are also present. So as a member of the New Hanover County Schools Curriculum Committee, Curriculum Committee, we have Christiane May, Dion Sturdivant, and Ms. Sturdivant, if you can hear us, I know you were having some audio difficulties. If you could just put that you're present in the chat. We also have Dr. Janice Silver.
Present.
Thank you. We have Jordan Steinhilber.
Hello, present.
Thank you. We have Mr. Philip Sutton.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have Sharon Ducharme.
Present. Good afternoon.
Thank you. We have Mr. Alan O'Brien. And we also have Dr. Jackie Jethro. Okay, let me close that out. And Dion Sturdivant is here. She did indicate that in the chat.
Okay, now, one of the things that I see that we, well, first we need to approve the agenda.
Well, yes, I was going to also acknowledge those folks who are here with us as well, even though they're not committee members, if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I see a couple people there. I see Mr. Wildebohr. Hello there, Mr. Wildebohr.
Hello, Ms. Justice.
Hey, he's a member of the board. And I see Ms. Craybill. She's also a member of the board. What? Hi. well, look at this. And then also Mr. McManus just signed on. Hello, Mr. McManus.
And then we also have with us Mr. Travis Matthew, who is our lead teacher for K-12 social studies and global education. Well, excuse me, world languages. I apologize. So he is present with us
Here,
here.
good afternoon.
There
Yeah.
he is. Yeah.
And then, as I shared earlier, we have with us Mr. Josh Smith, who is our Chief Communications Officer, excuse me, for New Hanover County Schools. And he is present here at the Board of Education Center. So I think those are all the members that are present, in addition to anyone else who's in attendance.
Let's go ahead though and approve the agenda so we can move forward, because there's a lot of exciting stuff that I'm looking forward to, and I know we all are, because new information is always great. So do we have to do this individually due to the fact we're on Zoom?
I believe so. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I move to approve the agenda. Do I guess since I'm the chair, I can't do that. Anybody else like to do that?
So anyone who is a member of the committee could second Ms. Justice's motion.
Second.
Okay, that was Ms. Sturdivant
Yes.
with a second. Okay. And so we will call Ms. May, approval of the agenda. Ms. May, do you approve the agenda?
Might be muted. I know I have that problem sometimes.
Yes. You were unmuted for just a second, Ms. May.
Can you hear me?
I can hear
Oh,
you
there you
now.
go.
Oh, I can hear you now. Approval of the agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Ducharme?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton?
Yes, ma'am. Approved.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Steinhilber?
Yes.
Dr. Silver?
Yes.
Okay, and I think those are all the members that we currently have. And also, Ms. Sturdivant, I know you made the motion, seconded the motion, but do you also approve the agenda?
Mutes. She's on mute, I believe. Not sure if she heard you.
Yes, Ms. Sturdivant, do you also approve the agenda?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Justice, we have the agenda and it has been approved.
And I noticed that we have the minutes next. I have not received a copy. We've had one meeting, correct?
We have.
Right. And I haven't received a copy of that yet. When we get it, we'll post it. Those things, sometimes it's just not right there in front of you.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
we'll hold that to that. We can approve at the next meeting we have.
Yes, ma'am.
Last minutes from the last meeting, and this one too. We'll get together again.
Yes. Would you like to go on to the next item on the
Oh,
agenda?
absolutely. I should have introduced you. Dr. Smith is now literally, she's doing a great job. Literally going to go forward with the curriculum part of this meeting. She is definitely the expert. Go right ahead, Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Ms. Justice. North Carolina has approved new North Carolina essential standards in the areas of social studies, or in the area of social studies. And so we believe that it is important that we overview these standards. We've done a lot of work with our teachers in preparing for these standards, but we believe that it was necessary to bring forth the standards to share that with not only this committee, but also with the community. And so Mr. Travis Matthews, who is our lead teacher in the area of social studies for New Hanover County Schools, has put together a presentation to overview those standards with us. There are a few interactive pieces, but they're a little more difficult to do since we're online as opposed to on site. But I think it's probably most important to understand the standards and the work that's going in to make sure that our teachers are aware of the standards and feel comfortable in presenting them this year. So at this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Matthews.
All right, Dr. Smith, thank you very much. I am glad to be here. I think all of you, at least to some degree, and some more than others. But again, thank you for giving me this chance to present. I am going to share my screen and we'll go ahead and get started. I know everyone's time is valuable. Okay, Dr. Smith, am I able to share? Okay, yes, thank you, Dr. Smith. All right. Give me 1 second here. Okay, can everybody see the PowerPoint as it is, or the Google Slides as it is coming up here? Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Shorn, for the thumbs up. I saw that. And as Dr. Smith said, and I'm sure we've all heard, yes, brand new social studies K-12 standards are rolling out and starting, I guess, technically this July with the year-round schedules, certainly with August as we get all of our schools back in session. And just a quick review for some of you, and for some of you, this will be new information. But again, yes, they are rolling out. And two of the big changes is now every single course outside of the economics course will have inquiry-based curriculum standards. And we're going to go into that a little bit more later in this meeting. But anyway, everything from kindergarten all the way through high school courses. Okay, every course starts out with inquiry-based curriculum, and that is definitely going to be a focus. And the good thing is, I mean, we've done a lot of work with that, and we'll talk more about that too later on. And then also, there are direct standards for underrepresented voices, historically underrepresented voices in the curriculum as well. Okay, and we're going to have some training on that for the teachers in August when they return. And by the way, and here is the link for the new standards. I will share this PowerPoint in case that's K-12 as well. In case there's anything you would like to unpack further. All right, as far as the elementary social studies go, the biggest changes came from second grade, where now it's kind of gotten away a little bit from a global standpoint to more of a kind of a foundation thematic American historical approach on the second grade level. And fourth and fifth grade, there's going to be some content extensions. So we're creating 3 additional units for 4th and 5th grade. And by the way, we are releasing, I hope is July 1, and we're on schedule to do that, which I realize is later this week, Thursday. We are going to be releasing curriculum maps to go with the new courses rolling out, everything but the economics course. Okay, in regards to middle school, not much has changed. I mean, as far as the major content, certainly the inquiry-based strands are new, as well as the historically underrepresented voices strands. Those are new, as I had alluded to earlier. But as far as the overall major content, 6th grade is still ancient history. And by the way, this is the only grade level in which they will receive ancient history. Okay, that has been taken out of the high school level courses, including the AP world. All right, 7th grade is still that modern world history course that starts around 1400 and goes up through the present day. And 8th grade is still that combination of North Carolina and US history. High school, we've had some significant changes. Again, world history will now, instead of starting with ancient history, the state course now will begin around 1200. Civics economics has been divided into 2 different courses. There is now a civic literacy, okay, which is essentially the civics course, and there is an economics and personal finance, or EPF, course. And American history, we've gone from American 1 and American 2 all the way into one large compacted American history course. This is going to be challenging. That is a lot of content to get through in one semester at the high school level. No question about it. We do miss the American 1 and American 2. It was the creation of that new economics course. That's what caused the state to then simply compact the American history course. So let me ask, because again, and that's a general overview, do we have any questions regarding anything that's been covered so far? Now,
Was unmuted. You said 1200
yes, ma'am.
as far as ancient history goes?
No, as far as the start of modern, as far as the high school course starts at 1200.
So nothing except for 6th grade is the only time they're going to touch on any of the previous history?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. I know.
There is so much of where, well, this is whoever came up with this curriculum. That's just sort of as a person with a degree in history who's taught history for many years, that's a huge chunk of humanity. I don't know what else to say, especially civilization.
Right.
I'm glad they're getting in the 6th grade, but
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And the good thing is about the 6th grade, they are able to completely focus on that. But oh yeah, no, and I share your concerns. Honestly, in a best case scenario, we really should have 5 or 6 social studies requirements, to graduate in order to really do all this stuff justice there. No pun intended, Miss Justice.
I got you. That happens all the time.
Okay. All right.
And Mr. Matthews, there's several questions in the chat.
Okay, and all right, let me see if I can get to the chat here. Great, thank you for telling me that too. Okay. Okay, Ms. Cravo, excellent question. I have sat with a team of teachers and we developed a pacing guide to go along with the new American history course. And I should also say this, the brand new American history course, the only students that have to have that are incoming freshmen. Rising 10th, 11th, and 12th graders can still have either American 1 or American 2, and they can certainly have both. All right, so anyway, wanted to make sure and clarify that. But yes, we do have a workable pacing that's realistic. We sat down with teachers to develop this. We wanted to make something that was realistic. But with that said, if American 1 and American 2 were considered a marathon, this is considered a sprint. Okay, now let me get to Mr. Wildeboer. Question here. Can we get more defined? Okay, Mr. Wildeboer, thank you for that question. And I think the way to answer that is, there have just been things in social studies that have not been touched on. Okay, either out of ignorance or for whatever reason. For instance, example, the Tulsa Massacre. That was something that really, this year marked the 100th anniversary of that. And I'm embarrassed to say that I went through high school and undergraduate history degree without knowing anything about that. I learned first about the Tulsa Massacre in graduate school. And I was actually learned about it through a non-history major. He asked me about it. And I had to tell him, I'm not familiar with that. Let me check into this. And anyway, so that's kind of what we're going about. We're looking into voices, of women, of various minority groups, people of color, that their stories have not been as defined, have not been as big a part of the curriculum as they should have been. So we're just trying to give a full picture of social studies.
Can I ask a question? Oh, well, I guess I can. About the economics end of this, Do you have any understanding yet what this curriculum is going to look like, or we're going to be hearing about that in the future?
Yes, ma'am. No, it is released. And no, in fact, that link that I have in this Google Slides, you can go and take a look at that. Honestly, the economics standards are very similar to the economic standards from the old civics and economics course. And I say old, I probably shouldn't use that term because that's still a course. So rising 10th, 11th, and 12th graders can still take the civics and economics course. Okay, but the incoming ninth graders must have the new civic literacy as well as the new economics and personal finance. The extension, Ms. Justice, so if you take a look at those standards, the extensions you'll see will be under personal finance, where they have put more, they just put more standards to that. Now, the old civics economics course did have personal financial standards. I mean, it really did. Right. Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. I realize I'm not telling you anything you don't know. So, but this one, you will notice that it does have extensions on that. So, and I'm also proud to say, I want to just give a shout out to our social studies teachers. Last summer, in order to teach this economics course, every teacher must be certified by taking a state course. We had 4 teachers take the state course last summer, and we have 19 teachers signed up this summer.
Oh, wow.
To
good.
take that. Yes, absolutely. So at the end of the summer, provided, you do have to pass the course, and, my understanding is it is challenging, but provided everyone, passes and everything, and I believe they will, we'll have 23 certified to teach that course.
Great. Okay. Thank you for that information. That's impressive. Thank you, teachers.
Absolutely. No, they have jumped right on it. And many of the teachers didn't necessarily need to take it this upcoming summer. They certainly could have waited a summer to do that. And the state is also offering some courses through fall and spring semester, but that's more challenging when you have a whole room full of students. So a lot of our teachers have opted for the summer option.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that information.
Absolutely. And Ms. Sturdivant, I will share these slides. Absolutely. And I have not done that yet. I've just shared my screen. Ms. Craybill, will be for AP US history so students can earn college credit? Absolutely. That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. Yes, the AP US will take the place of the state American history course. So it's the same for the American 1 and 2 that we are currently on, and it will also take part for the upcoming or the new American history course that's compacted. So excellent question there. Testing changes, and I'm assuming you're referencing social studies in particular. At this time, the state has issued nothing about any of the social studies courses being tested. I have spoken with one teacher who told me that he was in on the creation of the economics and personal finance course, and there are plans to potentially test that course. I have no more details than that, and I'm not sensing that that's going to roll out next year. Okay, again, we've received absolutely zero information on testing. I do think at some point they will do something, but it looks like that's not going to be the case for next year. So, and I'm personally thankful for that, for us to be able to have a year at least to sort of, implement this curriculum and get our feet wet and everything as well. Okay, great, Ms. Craybill. Another great question. Why was 1763 the date chosen for American history course? All right, that is the end of the French and Indian War. And that is the period where England, Great Britain, is going to go into debt, and they're going to start taxing the colonies. Essentially, that is the start of the Revolutionary War, period. Okay, so excellent question. So that's why that date was chosen. Mr. Witterbord, I am not on the agenda for the July school board meeting.
Actually, that would be an interesting ad if there's enough interest. Mr. Wildebohr, you could ask for that. I'll second you.
Okay. Is that all the questions that we have at this time of that part? And we're going to go into something else here real quick. Thank you. Did not pay.
I would just like to make this comment. When I was teaching, which was a while back, they were just changing over at one point to the extending the American history course to 2 years as opposed to the previous one. So there's probably quite a few teachers that have that experience. So for many, it won't be as big a stretch as some people think it would be, because we have experienced it doing it in one semester or 1 year as opposed to 2. So,
You know, Ms. Justice, I think that's a good point. But we do have a lot of new teachers, though, in our district over the last 10 years. I mean, it's been a little over, it's been a little over 10 years since we've had, the compacted class beforehand. So there's definitely been some changeover, and some people have gone from American history to teaching, AP or civics or something else too. So anyway, but we are going to have some training we will have a curriculum map, for the new American history course, and we will also have some training. And honestly, not many of our schools are starting with the new American for next year.
thank you for that information.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay. So, all right, let me. All right, and guys, what I'd like for y'all to do right now, in the chat box, I would love just to kind of hear your reflections and your thoughts. And again, we're not looking for right answers here. No one's going to get marked down. But what is inquiry-based instruction? I had noted that that's a major focus of the new standards. So my question is, what does that mean? What is inquiry-based instruction? And if you'll just sort of type an answer there in the chat box, that would be great. Okay, well, those are three great answers here. That's exactly right. Active learning, make that 4 great answers. Ms. Graybaugh, I just saw your answer there regarding the engineer. Okay. Mr. Sutton, problem solving. Active learning, student-led. Okay, fantastic. So let me go ahead and go back into present mode here. All right. That is exactly right. In regards to social studies, the state is wanting, and we concur with the state 100%, we're wanting to turn students into investigators of social studies, investigators of history. That is, that they're reading, they're discussing, and they're evaluating questions, sources, those types of things. So in a nutshell, that's inquiry-based instruction. And one of the reasons, you hear so much about it, it is, again, it's a major focus of the new standards. And one of the things, this is just amazing. This science completely supports and backs up inquiry-based instruction to the point where our brains, when we hear a debatable, compelling question, our brains actually release dopamine. And as we all know, it is next to impossible to learn something when you're not engaged. So inquiry-based instruction can increase engagement, particularly emotional engagement as well. Again, these questions tend to be a little bit on the controversial end, or at least not having a definitive answer. They're debatable. And of course, we hear so much today about teaching critical thinking skills, and we all know as adults how valuable those skills are, and that's one of the main, one of the best outcomes of inquiry-based instruction. And of course, we're having students, in the social studies, we're working with primary and secondary sources. So you're going to have reading passages and documents and things that are going to be at or mostly above grade level. And of course, what research has found is when students are involved again with this release of dopamine, when they're charged, when they are involved, when they are being investigative, this knowledge tends to stick a lot better than just memorization of facts. Now, some of you may or may not be aware, but New Hanover County Schools has done a lot with history labs. Okay, and that is another way to go about doing inquiry-based instruction. There's all types of things. There's project-based learning. There's the C3 framework. There's stuff from Stanford, Reading Like an Historian. These things all provide various inquiry-based instructional assignments. But History Lab has been one of the things that we have focused on with New Hanover County Schools, and we're going to look at one today. We're going to do a brief overview for those of you that are not familiar. But a History Lab is really just a set of dichotomous primary or secondary sources that students process in order to develop their own conclusions. Okay, and sources can be, poems, documents, images, political cartoons. I mean, song lyrics, videos, basically you name it. And what we're asking the students to do is take a look, who created these sources? What were they attempting to do? What are strengths of the source? What are weaknesses? How valuable is this source to helping you form a conclusion? Now, I don't know if you can see, well, I'm getting ready to kind of show, I think this book was in, we brought the author of this book, Bruce Lesh, we brought him in actually twice to help train our district in using history labs. He's absolutely fantastic. This book is absolutely fantastic. And so we got kicked off there. We have created over 45 history labs for our teachers to be able to use. And we're going to take a look at one that we created this year that I actually sat down with Noon Johnson. She was middle school teacher of the year this past school year, and she's at Holly Shelter, and she teaches 7th grade. And we developed one of the Reformation, and it was just great working with Noon in that capacity. But so, and again, this is the one that that we created here on the Reformation. And our very first lab that we ever created was, should the United States have dropped the atomic bomb, to end World War II? And it's a compelling question that historians and sociologists and various other people still debate to this day. You can turn on the History Channel every August and they have some type of show depicting that very question. Again, not necessarily a right answer to that question. So, all right, just taking a look here. All right, I going to show you a history lab here. Can everybody see this? Okay, great. Thank you, LaShawn, Dr. Smith. All right, so, as I said, there's a set of dichotomous sources here. I just kind of want to show you this one on the Reformation. We've got a quote here, and again, this is dealing with Martin Luther and some of the things that he felt were abuses in, going on with the Catholic Church, and he challenged those things. And anyway, so we've got various sources here. Here is source 1, and that's from a Catholic friar encouraging people to donate money. Source 2 is just a painting as Martin Luther is being depicted, and it's interesting to see these people observing Martin Luther nailing those 95 Theses to the Catholic Church. We have here a modern day letter criticizing Luther and the Reformation and the long-term impact that it had, which is a phenomenal read. And again, I can share this with you. We actually have here, these are, again, there were 95 charges that Martin Luther brought against the Catholic Church. And so we have 5 of them here. And we've got an excerpt from the Pope during this time period and his response to Martin Luther. And we have here a table depicting the wars of religion that are going to take place after Martin Luther. So, and this is a very unfortunate side effect, is you're going to pitting Protestants and Catholics fighting all over Europe and other places as well. And we have here another piece, again, it's just important to share. Here is, this Martin Luther, towards the end of his life, did more than dabble, really got into some anti-Semitic ideas and thoughts. And unfortunately, right below source 8, the Catholic Church also wasn't immune to that either, as you see here, just from that image. So again, we're asking students to put these 8 sources together. And we have a document analysis sheet to go with each of our labs. And so the first question, does this source challenge or support the Protestant Reformation? Strengths and weaknesses of the source. And then this is a key component here. We're asking students to rank these sources. So however you feel, was the Reformation worth the cost? However you feel about that question, which sources most led you to that conclusion? And then, of course, when I've been able, in fact, I got a chance to model this very lesson to a couple, I guess maybe 4 classes, 2 at Holly Shelter and 2 at Noble. So I was able to kind of test this and everything. And the students had it was just a real lively debate. So, energized. And again, that's the whole point of this, that's what we're going for. So let me go back here to the Google slide. So what I would love to sort of hear, if you guys would maybe unmute here, what do you see as a potential benefit of a history lab? This type of instruction. And I know there are some questions in the chat, and I will get to those as soon as we sort of get some feedback here on this. And you can just unmute and talk.
Well, it's the best
I'll
way
go
for kids
first.
to learn. They get engaged with the topic and do research, and then they discuss amongst themselves and exchange ideas. I mean, this is very beneficial. I've used it, and other people have, and seen the power of it, as opposed to a sit and get lecture or something like that.
I agree 100%.
I really like this approach because I'm a very analytical, write things down and kind of like plus delta charts, on everything. And this really helps guide discussion. I've had the opportunity to use it as a substitute teacher where you really don't know the kids at all. And just listening to their comments about why they think something is right or something is wrong is very interesting, to listen to kids. And so it forces them to start making decisions based on fact instead of just a gut feeling, that some people need that to help them. But I like the fact that it's kind of like a rubric, teachers use that for everything they do, so why wouldn't we, share that strategy with our students?
Absolutely. Maybe one more share.
I would say far as students using the sources, approved sources, and then being able to apply and synthesize information, I do like that part of the research mechanism, and being able, basically, if you build on the lessons, they'll have to defend their answers using the sources.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely. And one of the things too, this is not something you just casually roll out. You have to, as even with adults, gracious, married couples have to set boundaries when there's an intense discussion inside the home. Okay, so certainly, with students who are not necessarily part of the same family, maybe part of the same community inside that classroom, but again, teachers need to set boundaries, need to set rules. But I think it is a valuable thing to learn, to be able to sit in a room with someone who may disagree with you. These are skills our society badly needs to develop,
I have
very badly.
I'm sorry, I have one more question. Who approves the sources?
Well,
Or is it
great
is it
question.
civilized provided sources?
You know what? At this point, now, what a lot of times a teacher will do, honestly, I have created, and I've worked in some cases with some teachers, I've created a lot of these history labs myself, to be honest. Okay. In some cases, I've gotten a few from maybe another district person, and that's got similar position as me in another district. But some teachers have created these as well, and they've done a great job with them. As a whole, I mean, that is something as a professional, um, as a trained with a history degree, that and again, we've also led training on this, this developmental process as well. But that is the hardest thing to do, is to develop history lab. It's one thing to go through the process when it's there, and I will also say one other thing too. We actually have a history lab badge, so we have an online course that teachers can take to get a further additional training. In the last module, they have to develop their own history lab, and I ultimately approve that, or tweak that, or ask them to go back and make some changes and things.
My last question, and I'll be on first next question, but the balance of the sources, what's the criteria of balance of what that teacher's exposure to other voices or other sources?
That is an excellent question. Excellent question. One of the things, if you'll notice, in the labs, they're almost always an even number. And that is purposely done. For instance, the first lab we developed as a district, should the United States have dropped the atomic bomb, it originally came with 14 sources, 7 that were more, yes, dropping was the right decision, 7 that said no, dropping was the wrong decision. Every lab that we create as a district is even on sources. So whatever question we're trying to debate, there is an even amount on both sides. Okay, again, just like everything else, we don't want to indoctrinate students. We want students to develop their own opinions. And honestly, this is what historians do. So when students are in their social studies courses, we want them acting like mini historians. Right? I mean, would you agree with that, Ms. Justice, that this is kind of what historians do?
Absolutely. That's how we get our degrees. That's what we spend our time doing. Nowadays, with the technology, they got all the libraries of the world at their fingertips. It's wonderful.
Right. Right. And okay, so I'm going to go into this chat here, because I know there were some questions here. Okay, I pulled up the chat box. If I miss your question, please let me know. Okay. Student lab posing questions. Yes, I love this. Okay, great question. Does this allow for students to find their own sources? Yes. Now, Bruce Lesh, again, I call him, he does not like it when I call him this, the godfather of History Lab movement. Yeah, I mean, he really is, but it's so time. Yes, there's an element of that. You can do that. But there's also this thing, you do have to get through the curriculum as well. And one of these history labs can take, at least one day, if not 2. So a lot of times we pull the sources. The history lab is together much the way I presented it to you. So the professional has gone out and gotten, the dichotomous sources, and then we roll those out to students. And certainly you could take kids to the library and you could do that, but now you've wrapped up a week. I mean, it would take a week to do that. And so anyway, there's a little bit of a balance there, as well. Okay.
I have another question. What's the check and balance of someone picking a source that could pose a problem or be an issue? with the author of the source. I'm just thinking outside the box. Just
Right.
let's say a teacher decided to do, should you kneel for the flag?
Right.
That's a controversial topic. So
Well,
just throwing that out.
no. Well, let me say this. We actually have a history lab on that very topic. And so we centered it around, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. The name is slipping me right now. Who was the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers that first sort of started the movement of Kaepernick? I'm so sorry. Thank you. I don't know why that slipped me. But so we actually have a lab on Kaepernick, and a lot of our teachers have used that lab with their students. And we have never had a problem with that. We haven't had a problem with any of our labs, to my knowledge. And I'll tell you why. We haven't had a problem, I think, because both sides are represented. And no student is ever forced to take any position. Now, I will say this. We have a Roe v. Wade history lab as well. And let me just say this. By very nature, all of our history labs are a little bit controversial. Okay. I mean, just because we're dealing with questions that are debated, and just like the issues of our day, some of the main ones are debatable because there's two legitimate positions. And I do know at Ashley, a teacher used the Roe v. Wade this past school year spring semester, and we had a parent call and they were a little concerned. The parent saw the assignment and they were like, okay, I don't think they realized that both sides were necessarily represented. And, so student wasn't pressured to do anything. I mean, they were, so anyway, it's so great question.
Mr. Matthews, I think one of the things, because I would agree, I think that the labs that are facilitated or are created by you or in collaboration with you, it's going to have that. I think where we run into issues that Mr. Sturtevant is talking about is when we kind of create those on our own, and we've got to do that because we can't have everything just created by you. But sometimes we don't bring in those underrepresented voices or those sources that are going to give that perspective. They may be on one side or the other, but they're not hearing from that voice. Not, I think that's where we've got to make that a priority with these.
Mr. Sutton, I agree. And I would say these labs do that by and large. I would say the second or third one, I see Mr. O'Brien is actually kind of across from me. But when Mr. O'Brien first took the director's position for instructional services, he came in and he wanted to find out about the lab that we had created on Thanksgiving, where it absolutely asked students, I forgot exactly how we titled it, something along the lines of, should Thanksgiving be a day of celebration or a day of mourning? And so there we have the Native American perspective there. And again, 8 sources, 4 on more of a traditional kind of interpretation of Thanksgiving and 4 on a side that would ask students to think about things from a Native American perspective. So, Mr. Sutton, I think that's the point you were making. But when I have seen teachers work on this, work on labs, and Mr. Sutton, I don't know if you've seen a teacher or something do a poor job developing a lab. I have not. The labs that have been shared with me that teachers have developed, I've been pretty impressed with. And by their very nature, they almost automatically lend themselves to getting these historically underrepresented voices into the classroom. Okay. So again, great question. Let me see, Ms. Craybill, can a parent opt out of any history lab because they do not want their child hearing about the topic at school? I will give you sort of an overview of that, and I will let someone, that more on the policy standpoint be able to speak to that. My understanding is students are typically able to opt out of assignments. Again, I don't think that's to this point. We have not, to my knowledge, we have not had a student do that, request that. We have not. I see some of the expressions on the faces. Some of you almost seem surprised that that's the case, but I really think the issue, the point in our favor has been that both sides have been represented. So we really have not gotten a lot of pushback with these. Now, not every single teacher is using them as well. So let's just, these are a resource. So we've got them in our curriculum apps. We do have them highlighted and that type of thing. And someone asked, and I apologize, I'm just getting this question. Someone asked, are they in elementary school? We do have some for the elementary level. We have, in fact, the Thanksgiving lab we have for an elementary level, as well. So we've got maybe 8 to 10 at the elementary level. They're a little harder to create there. But anyway, but we do have some. Yes, ma'am. All right. Let me see.
Travis, I wanted to, oh, sorry, Dion, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. Who's
Okay,
next?
I'm
I apologize.
Sorry. Dion, I'm sorry for jumping on you. I didn't see your thing come unmuted. I don't really see it as a problem or something that we should encourage, for people to be opting out. But given where we are in our country right now, and in our local community, I am just anticipating that there will be a parent who does not want their kid to discuss whatever topic you've put in the history lab, even though it's been vetted, by you and other folks on the curriculum team. So I only brought that up not to be adversarial and not to challenge, but just kind of thinking out there on where we are right now. I mean, I personally think it's a good idea to have all that stuff presented and let the kids make their own choice, or at least start thinking about it. Maybe they aren't able to process it all the way themselves, but at least going through the exercise of trying it, is good.
I agree. And guys, let me give just sort of props here. I tell this to teachers all the time. I love the Wilmington Star News. I still get a hard copy of the paper sent to my house every day. And one of the reasons I like it, on the very back page of the paper, the editorial page, they have both conservative and liberal editorials. I read them both. I read all the editorials, and let's say there's 21 editorials per week between the 7 days of the week, or maybe there's 20. There's an even number, and there is an even number. So it could be one day there's 2 conservative and 1 liberal. The next day it's vice versa. But anyway, by the end of the week, it's all even, and it's wonderful. Anyway, okay, guys.
Is it a particular school or grade level that uses the history labs? Are there any underrepresented? Do most middle and high school use the history labs?
Yes, I mean, I think most of our schools are using them at the secondary level, 6-12. Not sure. Certainly, I do know absolutely there are some using it at the elementary level, as well. We've had some elementary teachers create a couple of labs, as well. But again, even at the secondary level, not necessarily every single teacher is using them, but a lot of our teachers are.
What I've seen in the classroom, like Scholastic News, they do like a semblance of what you're describing on a history lab. Like they'll present a topic and then have different points of view at the age appropriate level of the kids. I mean, I've only seen Scholastic News really used with me at the elementary school level. So that's what I was thinking of when I saw some of the comments about that. And Scholastic News is something that we've approved for use in our school system.
Right. Absolutely. And you see this format on other venues as well. I mean, essentially, if you ever watch a 24-hour news network, sometimes they'll bring on a conservative and a liberal, and those two will kind of battle it out, and they're giving their kind of viewpoints. They're using facts and data. Hopefully they're using facts. And anyway, various resources. I know some, anyway, but so absolutely. And again, there are some free things created out there. So if a teacher is not using history, they may be using something from the Stanford group, which is an incredible resource. And again, the C3 framework has, and I'm putting a number to this, maybe 100, and I could be off, give or take, on the amount of inquiry-based assignments they have, but they're excellent. My only thing with the C3 framework, those are really detailed, and they can take 3 days to do those, in a class. But they're very good, though. Their sources are great and all that. They have some hot button questions that they ask as well. So, guys, further questions on this? These are great questions. Wow, I was not expecting all this.
Basically, our history labs are fulfilling the inquiry-based, although there'll be other types of inquiry-based
Yes.
activities going on. But they're really the main source of fulfilling that new requirement.
Well, they're a major source. I think I feel more comfortable saying that.
There are so many other activities very similar that's inquiry-based.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you said you had 45 labs,
Yes.
and that's a teacher option to use one or more of those labs.
Correct. Yes. And we've got on my webpage, they're in chronological order in American history, and we've got some for civics, and we've got some for world. And the Stanford Reading Like an Historian, their inquiry-based assignments, they also have world and American history as well. And they've got them by time periods. You can just kind of click on the time period and see their various assignments. And again, those as well, if you happen to scan the Stanford ones, will go into historically underrepresented voices. I mean, that's one of the things. Again, that's just sort of the nature of inquiry-based work to some extent. You're trying to reach out and get other perspectives.
We've got.
Why would I not want to use
Sorry.
a lab, particularly with the inquiry being the focus now?
Well, I guess my only thing is there may be some other resources they're using instead. Okay, great question, fair question. And again, I think most of our teachers are at least using some of these labs. But again, they may be using Stanford, they may be using from the C3 framework, and they may have developed something with just, they're not necessarily calling it a lab, they may have something with just a couple of sources.
I know many of them are using some things from Facing History. So
yes,
those are some options as well. At the middle school level, I know we're using that, have been using that.
What about the the economics end? Do they have anything similar to that in those courses? Because that really lends itself to a lot of inquiry based if you do it right, and the kids love that stuff.
Right. It absolutely. That is again a new course rolling out. As far as a whole thing being put together, we do not have, to my knowledge, a quote history lab created for the economics. And that is something that we can look to in the future, but I don't have anything created like that at this point.
It's new. Okay.
No, good question. All right, so let me just kind of okay. Wanted to just show you this. These are some of the things that I came up with for benefits of a history lab, and you guys said a lot of them. And again, I like this waiting your turn to speak. And when I've got to go in, again, sometimes I do go in and model some of these in classrooms, and it's again, you have to sort of prep students a little bit beforehand. Most of the students have been very good. A lot of times they'll get very passionate about these things, and that's what we want. Again, when you're passionate, you are taking in the information. And as the teacher up there, you've got to be a little bit of a lawyer. You've got to say, okay, well, I know you're saying this, but what document are you using to back up your opinion? And then even when they do point that out, if another student isn't doing it, sometimes other students are doing it. They're going to come in and say, well, that's true, that document says that, but this document over here says this. And I actually think this document is more reliable. See, when you're having conversations like that, you know these students are doing social studies the way it was supposed to be done, ultimately. So anyway, guys, that is the end of my presentation, but I'm still here, to take questions, things like that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Matthews.
Thank you very much. I'll go ahead and mute and unshare my screen. And Dr. Smith, I will share with you this PowerPoint so you can share with the group.
Thank you, and we will post this when we post the minutes for the meeting as well. All right, that was the main item on the agenda. What we have next are, as an agenda item, are next steps. And so just moving forward, we are working, as Mr. Matthews shared, to support our teachers in understanding deeply the standards, understanding the changes in the standards, and supporting them in the direct development of the district curriculum. So providing them the supplementary resources such as history labs so that we can effectively implement the within our classrooms. Mr. Matthews, any specific next steps other than what you've already shared in terms of supporting teachers?
No, just to reiterate, again, on Thursday, we're going to roll out these curriculum maps, as well. And again, if teachers are able to look at them or would like to look at them over the summer, they can sort of familiarize themselves, with the curriculum. And one of the things I'll say this about the curriculum maps I'm excited about, we are going to have, among other things in there, again, a lot of resources. We're trying to have either Google Slides or PowerPoints to go along with each unit. So that way teachers that are new to the content, brand new teacher, anything like that, they're going to have that as a bit of a blanket there to, to kind of help them a little bit with that. And again, we do have some trainings coming up there in August. Again, one on historically underrepresented voices, which we're going to have 2 or 3 professors from UNCW are actually going to be leading that training. We're super excited about it. And we're also going to have some training on the curriculum maps, as well as some training on History Alive as well, which is a, for lack of a better term, a kind of a electronic textbook resource. But the great thing about History Alive is they are very soundly inquiry-based by the title. History Alive, they want students up and doing history. And I know Mr. Sutton, just from his time at Murray, is a big supporter of History Alive and has seen what it can do with students and teachers. So anyway, but enough on that. I have talked a tremendous amount. So thank you for listening and hearing all that, and I appreciate the questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Matthews. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. It was extremely informative and hopefully will be helpful to the folks who have the opportunity to watch this, and also with our committee members, and understanding the changes within the social studies standards, as well as the resources and the support that we're providing to teachers as they learn and grow within the standards and effectively implement them with their students. So again, thank you so very much. And at this time, you're more than welcome. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Ms. Justice.
Right. And at this time, if there's any other discussion about any other topic referring to curriculum, does anybody like to move to adjourn? Unless there is somebody to have an inquiry. Anybody like to move to adjourn? Hello?
So move.
Well, I think it has to be a committee member, Pete, you. I know how you like to say that.
Anybody?
Any committee members like to move to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
All right,
Second.
thank you. Mr. Sutton with the motion, Ms. Steinhilbert with the second. So Mr. O'Brien? Yay or nay?
Yay.
Must be there in the room with you.
Ms. Justice,
Yes.
Ms. Silver, excuse me, Dr. Silver?
Yes, ma'am. I missed the second half of what you just said. Could you repeat? I was having an audio difficulty.
Not a problem. This is our motion to adjourn.
I accept.
Yes, Ms. Steinhilber,
Second.
Mr. Sutton,
I agree.
Ms. Ducharme,
Okay, I got her. She got the thumbs up.
all right, thank you. And Ms. May, is Ms. May with us? I know she
was.
asked her a couple of times. I think she may be off the call. Okay. All right, so,
I mean, she agrees. She lost connection.
okay, and then Ms. Sturdivant,
Yes.
thank you. All right.
I'd like to thank everybody that's attending today, that's part of this group. I know you are very busy, but this is very, very helpful for the district. So thank you for your time. Really.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Bye-bye until next time.